Hey everybody, Drew here with Smoke Barbecue, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a competition style brisket. Today for our beef brisket, we're going to be cooking with some B&B hickory lump charcoal. I like the hickory lump charcoal for my competition food. It gives that nice, great flavor, and we know what kind of wood is in the bag. So we're going to go ahead and get our 270 KC loaded up, start bringing it up to temp. If you haven't watched how we trimmed our brisket for competition already, go down in the link below and click on that video before you continue on this video so you can see how we've gotten to this point where we're starting today. Today we have here a fully trimmed Snake River Farms black grade brisket, and it's sitting here in a 270 Wolf's tray with the bus racks, and we have our point over here, and now we're going to go ahead and get this injected. Since we cut and trimmed our brisket, we've let it kind of sit out at room temperature for about an hour. This has started to let the meat loosen up, because when meat's cold, all the molecules get really, really tight together. As it begins to come to room temperature, it loosens up a little bit, so it's going to absorb our injection just a bit more today. So today, first thing we have to do is we're going to go ahead and make our injection real quick. And I do this on site at competition day of. I don't do it beforehand. You can do it beforehand, but I haven't found that there's necessarily any benefit to doing so. So we're gonna take a blender bottle. And a blender bottle, it has one of these giant balls in it to help it all mix up. This is a big one. This is about as big as you get. It's about 40-ounce one, which I really like. And it has measurements on the side as you go with it. So we're going to start off today with some Butcher Barbecue Prime Brisket Injection. And before I put anything in here, I want to put some liquid in here to make it work out well. We're going to start with some Swanson's beef broth. This is the regular beef broth, not the low sodium, regular beef broth. And I like to get the big container here, and I'll show you why shortly, because you can use one container for the entire competition. But we're going to go ahead, we're going to start off with 12 ounces of the beef broth using our measuring side on the blender bottle. I'm watching from the top. It's about 12. Now I got to turn it around to me. All right, we got about 12 ounces in there, and we're going to push this aside for later. And now I'm going to go ahead and take my Butcher's Prime Brisket Injection. This is a combination of the Prime Dust and the original brisket. So if you only have those two, you can do that. The cup inside is a 1/4 cup. We're going to do 1.5 cups of this really fine powder and put it right in. So 1.5 cups into there. I'm also now going to take the Miner's Au Jus Prep. You can get this online. This is just going to add some intense beefy flavor for us, and it's pretty intense. So I'm just going to put 1 cap, or essentially what's 1 teaspoon into it. So fill it up, dump it in. That's it. If I do too much more of that, the injection could get too dark and begin to stain the meat and the brisket, and we don't want that. Then I'm going to take your just standard 16.9 ounce bottle of water, 1 bottle of water. Make it easy, and I'm just gonna go ahead and spin it around, get it all out there. Everything I now need for my injection is in my blender bottle. So let's go ahead and stir it up tight, or screw it on tight. Make sure it's closed and it's not leaking everywhere. Now we're gonna play bartender. Don't forget to smile. All right, there we go, all done. Now, this is at room temperature, which is the same temperature as our briskets, so which is perfect. You don't want to put cold injection into your room temperature brisket. You want it to be the same. So if you make this before you start trimming, which I sometimes do, I just put it on the shelf, and then as soon as I'm ready to go, it's all done and ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and get ourselves injecting now. And I have with me, this is an awesome little injector. It's an animal injector. There are all kinds of different injector needles out there and injectors. But I'm going to use, most importantly, a 16 gauge needle. Because this is a veterinary piece, this is a veterinary needle. You can get these online or at Tractor Supply. And it's a disposable needle, so we'll use it one time and we're going to be done. But let's go ahead and put some gloves on here. Now, you notice my meat is already in its tray that it's going to sit in and cook in. We're going to leave it right here as we inject it. The advantage of using this 270 Smokers Wolf's tray with the bus rails here is it's going to hold our brisket shape and not let the brisket expand. One thing that happens when you inject briskets oftentimes is they expand. Now, we've cut this brisket down perfectly to size to the box that we want it to be in, but now it's got to hold that shape as it cooks. So let's go ahead and get this going here. Spin this needle on nice and tight. These needles are super, super sharp because they are veterinary needles, so be careful. And we're going to go ahead and shove the bottom of this tube all the way down there. Now again, 16 gauge needle. And we're just going to start sucking it in, and there we go, ready to go. All right. So now I'm going to inject with the grain in a checkerboard pattern using about 1-inch squares the whole length of the brisket. So when I push the needle in, as I push down, I'm pulling the needle back. So down and back. This is getting the whole length of the brisket. It's okay if you make a little bit of a mess with your injection. It's going to happen. So 1 inch all the way up and down, checkerboard. What I love about this injector is it refills automatically for me. I don't have to stop and refill as I go. So I can do the whole brisket in one fell swoop. And you can see that the brisket is just absorbing all of this injection I'm putting into it. And you can see right here that it's beginning to push this, was pushing the side. Let's see if it happens on the other side, which is why it's in this unit. Nope, not there, but it's pretty close. And I got this fit. I have this brisket cut down perfectly to fit my KCBS turn-in box, which is what I'm practicing for today. So if you cut your brisket down ahead of time, this way we're going to be able to get a nice round edges all the way throughout your box. You're not going to have to cut the bark off the side, most likely. So it's a good place to start. So again, just checkerboard all the way down. You can see how much is taking in here. It's a beautiful piece of meat we have. Okay. Now, a lot of pitmasters will tell you that this is where they stop. They've gone up and down the brisket one time. I'm going to tell you, you got to keep going. You want to go ahead and turn your brisket 180 degrees. We're going to do the same thing, and we're going to come all the way back down. We want to get this injection in here. The reason we use an injection is not only to get more flavor into the meat itself, but also because this injection has phosphates. Phosphates help retain moisture and are going to help ensure you have a moist brisket. Now, this is a black grade Wagyu brisket. Which means already is going to have a ton of moisture in it and should be super tender. But every little bit helps to make sure that from the time you cut this brisket to the time it gets to the judge, that it is perfect. So again, we're just going to go all the way up and down. We have this entire bottle of injection here, and we're going to use almost all of it into the flat. And the advantage of doing this on the tray in the pan, you can see all this excess is just draining off of the brisket. I want to get all the way to the sides as well. Don't neglect your sides because you don't want them to crumble. All right. All right, now I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna turn through the side of my wolf's tray, through the holes here, and I'm gonna hit every other hole with a pump of my injection up and down, making sure it's gotten all the way through the sides. I'm gonna do it again on the other side. Oh man, this just looks so great. All right, now I'm done injecting this, but you can see how much of that I used into the flat. So what I'm gonna do now real quick is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take my top off that I got my needle into, and I'm gonna lift my wolf's tray out with the brisket on it, and all this injection that came out, I'm gonna pour it back in here. Put my wolf's tray back on. And now I'm gonna inject my point. That way, none of my injection has gone to waste. All right, so the point, again, your grain goes the opposite direction. You don't want to inject your point as much as you do your flat. If you over inject the point will become salty. Because there's so much fat in the point, the intermuscular marbling, it's going to shrink significantly. So the amount of overall seasoning you use on it has to be less, or it will end up salty. So we're just going to go do a quick, checkerboard. Same thing, other side. 4 to 5 by 3. 15 pumps or so on each side. And this thing is going to be beautiful. And that's it. It's done. If I do more than that, it's going to become salty. So we're going to go ahead and get right into seasoning here just as soon as I clean this up, and we'll be right back. Now that we've injected the brisket, we're going to go ahead and rub it right away. For the injection to truly work, you want to wait at least a minimum of 4 hours before you put your brisket into the smoker. So I usually inject when I'm at competition the night before, and then I'll go ahead and season it up, put it away, let all the flavors get into the meat so we're ready to go first thing in the morning when I wake up. So we've just injected everything. Today we're going to do a 2-layer rub. We're going to start off today with our B&B Charcoal Texas Trinity Seasonal. This is an all-purpose rub that I really like on brisket. Salt, pepper, garlic. It's a really good first layer. And then we're going to follow it up with some Eat Barbecue, the most powerful stuff. This is a really great beef rub. A lot of great flavor on it. So what I'm going to do first and foremost is I'm going to go ahead and take one hand, and I'm going to just use my hand to wipe all that, all the injection that's sitting on top all over the piece of meat, and this becomes our binder. So you don't have to put anything else, no mustard, anything like that, and you're going to do it on both pieces. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to season it again right inside the tray, because this is what we're cooking in. This is how we want it to go. So we're just making life easy. Do it all once. So we're just going to start seasoning. And I'm going to go pretty liberally, because remember, competition barbecue is won by food. We got to get great flavor. Notice I'm holding it up 6 to 8 inches, probably closer to a foot above, to get nice even coverage. And I'm going to go up and down. This is a pretty fine rub, and go up and down the edges there. I am going to hit the edges bouncing it off my hand. Bouncing off my hand to hit those sides and edges. And I'm actually going to do it through the side of the wolf's tray as well. Because I don't want to take it out, but there are the holes that let all that air and flavor smoke through. So we're going to go ahead and get the seasoning on where we can. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it on the point. But just like the injection on the point, I'm going to do about half as much, because I don't want to get too salty. So just go up and down. Just like that. Maybe just a hint more. but that's it. I don't want to go too much, especially since I have another rub coming. All right, so now I got our Eats barbecue. All right, and we're gonna go ahead, do the same thing. You notice how this has got that nice red color in it from the paprika, the chili powder. It does have a little bit of heat, but it's not overpowering. And this is gonna give it a really nice mahogany color as it cooks. I got the wind kind of blowing on us here. All right, so it's like blowing my rub as we go since we're doing this outside. Normally at a competition, I do this inside a trailer, or I have walls up on a tent to keep the wind from interrupting anything. But now we're beginning to get fully covered here and not really see much of the meat anymore. We're gonna do the same thing, bounce it off the hand through the holes on the side to get that flavor through. And make sure we get the ends. Oh, yeah, shake it up just a little bit, break it up. Hit that end, all right. Our coverage looks very good on our flat here. It's looking great. So we're just gonna do now about half as much, same thing, onto the point. Again, you don't want to go too much because it's going to shrink the meat, and if you put too much, you will overpower the meat. So we're going to just do a little bit more here. Got a little broken up there. There we go. And that looks good. All right. So now, if I was at a competition, we're going to let these sit overnight in a cooler, uncovered, so you can begin to kind of just let the air, let it set. We're going to let these sit for at least an hour today before we put them into our smoker. But again, for the phosphates to truly work, you need to wait at least 4 hours before this goes in. So we're going to go ahead and put it aside, and we'll be back in a little while. It's now time to go ahead and get those briskets into the smoker today. Today we're cooking on a 270 Smokers KC model, which I've preheated using B&B hickory lump charcoal to 400 degrees. 400 degrees, you might say. Why? Because we're cooking Wagyu. We need to go ahead and hit this really hard out of the gate as it goes into the smoker. So we're at 400 degrees. We're going to put this meat in. It's going to start bringing that temperature down, but we're going to keep it hot and high for about an hour, then we'll lower it. But you can see these pieces of meat are beautiful. At a competition, I would have gone ahead and seasoned these right before I went to bed overnight, let them sit, and then we're going on first thing in the morning. But let's go ahead and get these two pieces in. We're going to go ahead and put our point on our top rack that we've set up inside of our KC model, and then we're going to go ahead and put the flat in underneath. We want to put the point in first though, so it's in place, so just in case there's anything on the shelf, nothing's going to get knocked on top of our flat if we do it the other way around. So we'll go ahead and put the point in first, follow the flat, get it in the smoker, and then we're going to add some pecan and cherry wood as that smokes, so it begins to get all that great flavor. Our competition brisket has been in our 270 KC model now for an hour. We started at 400 degrees, and as we put in the cold meat, it came down a little bit, but we wanted it to stay hot and high. Because of that, we did not put a water pan in right away. If I was at a competition now on my timeline, I'd be adding my pork at the same time now that we're an hour in, and I'm gonna put the water pan in. The goal right now is that we've now hit the brisket really hot and hard for that first hour. Now we want to bring it down to about 275 to 300 degrees to cook the rest of the way, because that way we're not going to overcook it. We're not going to lose the differential in color, and it's going to just come out fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and add some water, try to bring the temperature down now. We're sitting right now at about 360 degrees. So bringing in this cold water, introducing it, and tapping it back down, since we're not adding our pork like we normally would, is going to help bring the whole temperature down just a little bit. Oh, but it does look fantastic. So water pan in, and we're gonna fill it up with water. Lots of water all the way to the top. And slide it in. All right, and we're gonna go ahead and close this up. Next time we're in here will be another hour from now. Our competition brisket has been in our 270 KC model now for 2 hours. We started really hot at 400 degrees for that first initial hit. If that first hour we ran it hot, after the first hour we added our water pan, began to bring down the temperature, and for the last hour we've been sitting around 275, 280 degrees, which is where we are right now. Now that we're 2 hours in, we're gonna take our first look here at this brisket and make sure that everything looks fantastic. And then we're gonna also rotate it 180 degrees and spritz it with just a little bit of water to make sure it's looking okay. So let's take a look. Oh yeah, we're getting some really nice color here on our on the point. We got some little dark spots on the edges, so we're just gonna hit those real quick with just a little bit of water. We're just using water because we're not really trying to add flavor. We're just trying to make sure that the moisture is great. So we'll go ahead and put that back in. And now we're gonna look at, man, this is a beauty right here. We got great color. The edges have just a little bit of heat. It's popping up. The 270 Wolf tray is holding the brisket, so it's puffing up instead of across. It doesn't really need much of a spritz other than these edges. So we'll spritz those. I'm gonna rotate it, bring it around, and we're rotating it to make sure that we get even cooking. Even though the airflow in here is very consistent, it doesn't hurt to double check and make sure you get good even cooking across the brisket. That's the last time we're gonna see that brisket until it's ready to wrap. So we're gonna let it go now for another about 2.5 hours, and then we'll check in on it one more time and get it wrapped and ready to go. It's been just about 4 hours now on our competition brisket, and it's been cooking beautifully in the 270 KC. Now it is time for us to get ready to wrap it and go ahead and continue to render down all the that goodness and that Wagyu. So we have right here in front of us 2 more blender bottles, and we're gonna put the exact same thing in both of them. But we're gonna do a big one for our flat and a smaller one and a half recipe for the point. And this is gonna help both of them render down. So the recipe here, very simple. Again, we're gonna use our measurements on it. We're gonna take the rest of that beef broth. Remember I told you to get the big one? This is why. We're gonna go ahead and put 20 ounces of beef broth for the flat. Get it all in there. I'm using the measuring on the right on the side of the thing. That looks about 20. Just double checking from the back side. Yep, that's about 20 right there. All right, and then we're gonna put, because we're doing a half time, we're gonna put 10 ounces in our smaller bottle. All right, fantastic. Now I'm gonna take more of our prime brisket injection. I'm gonna take 1 scoop, which is a 1/4 cup. 1 scoop into my big one, half a scoop into my small one. And now I'm gonna take a bottle of water and I'm gonna fill it to 32 ounces. And we want all this to end up in there, so 32 ounces. And so this one, half of that, we're gonna go ahead, fill it up to 18. Look at that, perfect. All right, let's go ahead and get these shaken up. And you can do this all the way at the last minute. You don't need to let this sit, but you do not want your beef broth to be cold. If you made your injections the day before and injected the day before, you wanna make sure you've taken that beef broth out, so that beef broth has come at least to room temperature, so we're not pouring cold liquid on top of a hot brisket. Let's shake these up. Bartending smile. Always get that smile. All right, fantastic. Those are all shaken up and we are ready to go. All right, well, let's go ahead and get into our smoker now. We're gonna go ahead and pull out the flat and then we'll go ahead and I'll show you how I wrap it up. let's go ahead and pull this out. Oh man, this brisket looks amazing. It's got great color. It's held together and shape-wise by the 270 Wolf tray. And we're gonna go ahead and transfer this now and bring it on over into its final resting place. Oh, look at that. Oh, that, my friends, is an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous piece of meat. All right, so now that it's into, this is a foil turkey pan. You can buy these at Costco, Restaurant Depot, any major grocery store. But I find that these oval ones fit this brisket really well, and that's gonna work really nicely for us. We're now gonna take our liquid, and we're gonna pour all of this in. And this should come up about halfway up the piece of meat, which it does perfectly. Okay. And now I'm going to take a probe. I'm going to take a ThermalWorks probe, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the probe right in the middle of my brisket right here. And this is going to kind of guide me the rest of the way to when it is done. So we're going to put that in there, and now I'm going to cover it with 2 layers of foil. We want to cover it super tight. You don't want any air or moisture getting out. Shiny side always down. Might be a myth. Let me know in the comments below. All right, and that's it. We're going to go ahead and put this back in the smoker now. Just turn around. Carefully goes back in, pulling our probe out. And now we'll go ahead and grab our point, which also looks just absolutely gorgeous. This is fantastic. You know, it's got great color. It's not looking overcharred on top. This is a beautiful, beautiful point. So we're gonna go ahead and take this, place it in a smaller pan, a half pan. Take our wrap liquid here. Pop it open. It's the same thing. We're gonna bring it all the way up. All this in here goes about halfway up. That's perfect. And now we're going to take, again, another probe, and we're going to watch this, and we're going to put this in the thickest part of the meat once again. And you can see we did a nice job of trimming it so it's nice and even all the way across. We don't have any spots that are higher, one side's higher than the other. It's looking great. So we'll go ahead, wrap this up real tight as well. All right, and back into the smoker we go. Okay, now that I got them both back in the smoker, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on my ThermalWorks smoke. This is it's gonna keep a track for us on our temperatures as we cook here. And I'm gonna set an alarm for the Wagyu, the way I cook it in this smoker. I'm gonna set an alarm for about 211 degrees because I would need to take the brisket that high to help render out this fat. We're gonna start watching it around 211, and somewhere between 211 and 213, it's gonna stall out, and that's gonna be our set point of when we're done. So we're gonna set our alarm here for 211 degrees on both the point and the flat, and we'll go ahead and plug it in, and then we'll just kind of wait and see. It should take us about an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to where we want to go. So we'll plug it in. We'll check back once these alarms start going off. It's been about an hour and a half since we wrapped our brisket, and I was just taking a look at our temperature gauge because we set our alarms for 211 degrees. That was my starting point to start taking a look at what's going on, but I've been watching it, and here's a pro tip of what I have learned over the time cooking Wagyu. On my top here is my point, which I have a temperature at, and then the bottom is my flat. You can see the flat's coming up to the point, but the point has been stuck around 212.6, 212.7 for about 30 minutes now. What that says to me is that the temperature I want to take my flat to is about 212.5, 212.6. They will be done at approximately the same time, and by using the temperature of the point, I'm able to determine what the temperature is on the flat on this particular piece of meat. Every piece of meat is a little bit different, but this is a great way to sit there and say, hey, I'm at an event, I'm cooking something I don't usually cook. How am I going to figure it out? You're going to watch that temperature gauge. When it stalls out on the point, that's what you want to take your flat to. So now that we know that, I'm going to go ahead and turn up my my alarm to 212 degrees. So when my flat hits 212 degrees, I can start watching it until we get to about 212.5 range. And at that point, that's when I know it's time to go ahead and get that brisket out of there. So right now, we probably got about another 20, 25 minutes. But this brisket's almost done. So I've been watching the temperature rise slowly on the flat on our ThermalWorks smoke thermometer after we found that the point stalled out at 212.5, 212.6. I've been watching it closely because I was expecting the flat to kind of get to that same area, but we're now at a point where it's stalled out at 212, 212.1, and so it's just a little bit below, but it's not going any further up. That tells me it's time for us to check. So let's go ahead and pull it out. I bet you it's done. Let's go take a look. All right, make sure you grab your probe so you don't accidentally pull it all with you. All right. And notice how I haven't taken out the point yet. The point, I just want to continue to render all that fat because this is a Wagyu brisket. But as soon as this goes away, if this is done, we'll pull the point at the same time. So we're going to carefully roll back here. It is a cooler night outside. This is why a lot of us like to work in trailers at competitions, so you got a consistent temperature and you're not losing everything. So I'm going to carefully unwrap. Just for purposes of demonstration, I'm going to take it all the way off to show you what I'm looking at. Oh man, this brisket looks amazing. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take our probe and we're going to go right in the middle and we're going to let it go. And we want it to just start sinking on its own and not see too much resistance. It's beginning to kind of drop in like melted butter, but it's not pushing all the way through, which is kind of what we want it to be. And you can see as we're temping it around, we're at 211, 212. So this bad boy is done. If I was sitting there and it wasn't just kind of like dropping in and was pushing hard back at me, we know there's a problem. So we're gonna go ahead and cover this back up, keep this heat in here. I'm gonna go move it into a hot box. I'm gonna hold it in a hot box for about an hour to 2 hours, depending on your competition timeline. That's where we would want to be, is a minimum of a 1 hour rest time before we move to finalize and box. So we're going to go ahead, put it away. We'll check. I'm going to pull out the point. We're going to put both of them in the hot box, and we'll see an hour so we can finish off and do a turn and box. All right, fans, we've waited an hour to get back to our Wagyu brisket, finish it off, and show you how we're going to finish it off for competition. So we have two parts left. We still have our flat and our point. So we got to finish both of these really quickly within a tight window to make it happen. So let's start off with our flat here. we're gonna go ahead and open it up, take it out of its container. Oh, the smells. We need smell-o-vision. It is just fantastic how this thing smells. Look at this thing. Oh, that is absolutely gorgeous. See how much it shrank down? Because this was a full-length piece when we started today. So I've heated up some sauce. Today I'm using some Head Country Apple Habanero as my finishing sauce. And we're gonna go ahead and take this hot sauce and I'm gonna paint the top of my brisket with it. Just gonna paint it real quick. Light coat. This is a relatively thin sauce. So we're just gonna paint it lightly. Get it on the sides. And we're gonna go ahead and put this back in the smoker for just a few minutes just to create, you know, just a little sweetness on top of that bark there, which has got that salt, pepper, just a little bit of that spice from the Eat's most powerful stuff. And our Texas Trinity. And this is just give us some nice color, some nice glaze. We want to make sure we get all those sides. Oh, it's just beautiful. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and put this back in the smoker for 10 minutes and then it'll give us time to work on our burnt ends. Now that we've got our flat back into the smoker, we have just a few minutes to work on our burnt ends. So for our burnt ends tonight, we're gonna go ahead and cut them up, cut the point up into the burnt ends using this 270 brisket jig. And this is designed for us to help slice it down to the right size and make sure that we have perfect burnt ends. So as you remember and you recall, we did our best that we could earlier to try and cut our brisket to the perfect size to limit how much we had to cut here at the end. Oh man, and it is, oh, look at this thing. It's just so jiggly, so jiggly. Feels so good. All right, so what we're gonna do now, we're gonna take this, this board here and we're gonna place it on top of it. And this is gonna help us kind of size it up so it can fit into the jig. So we're gonna use this. I'm just gonna take my long Wussoff brisket knife and I'm just gonna cut right down. Oh, that looks so good. And those will be test pieces right there. And then we're going to go ahead and turn it, cut the side just a little bit. So, looks so good. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to take this, go ahead and put it back into the bottom, and we're going to flip it over. Actually, no, we're not. We're gonna take a look at this because I think the height on these is actually pretty perfect. So we'll take a look at the whole thing real quick without that in there. Yeah, there we go, that's better. And that way we can go ahead and just slice this off the bottom so we have a nice even layer on the burnt ends as we cut. So we've just basically leveled out that piece of meat at the very bottom that was left. So we have a nice level piece of meat in the jig. It's nice and tight in here. So we're gonna go ahead from here and we're gonna go ahead and just cut right through to have perfect matching burnt ends. And you just, man, look at how smooth that knife is cutting right through them. And this way we have nice even pieces. Every burnt end is gonna be exactly the same size, just that perfect bite for the judges. And we're not sitting there trying to eyeball it, have some big pieces, have some small pieces. This jig really is a fantastic piece of equipment for burnt ends. We'll go this way now. And cut all the way through, all the way to the bottom. Oh man, this thing is just, these pieces of meat smell so good. All right, and last cut all the way through. Fantastic. Now, what's really cool about this jig is it fits in one of these Weber pans. These are these Weber grease trays. You can get them at Home Depot or Lowe's. And it is designed perfectly for this. So now we're going to take this, literally, we're just going to plop it right on top. Look at that. I have perfect burnt ends, perfectly cut, ready to go ahead into here. So, final thing we're gonna do with our burnt ends, we're gonna get these back into the smoker real quick. You can see we got just a little extra space in here. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our strainer, and this is a grease interceptor, and what it does is it strains the grease out of the top, and so we can put only the juice in the bottom. And since we're gonna go ahead and take the juice, or the jus that was the burnt ends were cooking in, or the point was cooking in, pour it through the strainer, make sure we don't have any bad parts there, any pieces of pepper or anything like that. It's gonna separate. If you look closely, and it's cold out here now, you can see the steam coming off, but you can see there's a level of separation, so none of the fat is in there. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna take that jus, drizzle it over the top, and put it back into the pan here with the burnt ends, making sure we don't add any of that fat. Okay? And shake it around, get it all in between those pieces, so we get all that great flavor. Now we're gonna take our head country apple habanero. Just gonna paint the top very lightly, which is a hint of sweetness and a hint of sauce. And we're gonna go ahead and put this back into the smoker. Let this sauce tack up while we go ahead and get our slices ready to go. And we are all set with the jig, so we're gonna get that out of the way. But let's go ahead, get this into the smoker, get that continuing to cook for just a few more minutes until we're ready. Whew. All right, now that the burnt ends are back in, we're gonna go ahead and test one of these end pieces real quick and just see where we're at with these burnt ends to see if we think we're gonna be able to use them in our box. And I can just tell, looking at this, these are nice and squishy. The fat looks rendered down. Let's take a quick bite. That's really good. Fantastic. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move all this aside now, because now it's time to get ready for the main event. We need to get ready to slice our brisket and get it ready to go right into the presentation box in one fell swoop. Time is always an issue with brisket because you've now fallen behind on everything else the entire competition. So now we have to finish strong and fast. So we're gonna start off while we're finishing, waiting for the sauce to tack up. We're gonna go ahead and take our jus from the main brisket, which just looks amazing. And we're gonna take this and do the same thing we just did before through the strainer. And we're gonna get all that excess fat out of it. I only want the good flavors. I don't want any fat. Anything that's fatty or greasy, it's not pleasing for our judges. And we have to make sure that we are giving our judges something that they want to eat. We want them clamoring to take a second bite of their food. So we're going to go ahead and let it separate. You see it's already separating well. And I'm going to go ahead and pour it out into this third pan. See, we got about there. We got a break point. Go ahead, pour the rest of it in and let it settle for a minute. All right, great. So we're gonna go ahead and put that to the side for just a moment. And then we're gonna put this other burnt end right to the side for just a moment as well. And now we're gonna go ahead and get ready for our brisket. The moment of truth. Out comes the brisket. Let's go take a look. Oh man. That brisket has just got that nice little glisten and glaze, It looks absolutely fabulous. I'm so excited about this. But now it's time to go ahead, bring it to the board. And it's time to cut it. Oh, look, it's almost big enough to fit in the box by itself. Not today. But let's go ahead and get this thing cut. It's beautiful. It's going to fit right within our box. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and slice it. I'm going to take one slice off of each side of the brisket to decide which side I'm slicing into. If you recall, we rotated the brisket halfway through its cook to make sure we tried to cook it as evenly as possible. And the hope is all of it, all the way down, is fantastic. As we slice it, we want to slice trying to shoot for number 2 size pencil slices in terms of thickness. We don't want anything too thin or too thick. If you're too thin, that's a sign that you have undercooked your brisket. If you're too thick, it's a sign you've overcooked your brisket, because you're trying to get that perfect pull by getting the right amount of meat to pull apart. So if we've cooked this perfectly, we're going to get number 2 size pencils and be great. So I'm going to go ahead and start my cut right here, right on the end of that rounded part. And let's see how we look on this side. And I'm going to go long strokes with my really long brisket slicer all the way through. And it just came right through. That looks like we're going to be in good shape. So number 2 pencil width. One long slice down. One long slice back all the way across. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take that first piece out and we're going to take a look. Looks like we're a little tight on this side. It's not flopping the way we want. So we'll go ahead and put that back in, turn it around, and we're going to go on to the other side and see what the other side looks like. And right there, again, that edge, right where we were cutting. And I'm taking a couple strides because I can feel it's a little looser on this side. So we're going to have a different feel on this side of the brisket. And split a little bit off the end. Oh, yes. That right there is what I'm looking for. Now, looking at my slice, I may have sliced it even just a little bit thick, so we're going to have to try and slice it a little thinner, but we've got great pull, great dexterity. It's holding itself. It's bending itself. You put it on the board, it's not breaking. These are all the things a judge is going to do to determine tenderness. So we got to be careful with our hand on the brisket on top here, but let's see if we can get that slice just a little bit thinner. And then we're going to start going across. All right, so here's a slice number 2, a little bit thinner. Ooh, and let's not drop it. Make a mess. Perfect. That's what we want to see every single time. Absolutely perfect. Bending, not breaking, right on that verge. Looking good. So we're going to start working our way across here. In the box, my goal tonight is to put 7 to 8 slices that are perfect inside the box. So we're going to start slicing across this way. We know where we start off well, and we're going to figure out where we end well, and then we're going to go ahead and work from there. Now, you can see, despite our best efforts not to be splitting on the side here, we are splitting a little bit and having some pieces of the brisket pull off there. So we'll just have to clean that up here at the end with all the slices once we get all the stuff cut that we want. It's not a big deal. We can fix it. The last few minutes and how you adapt to catastrophe, it determines whether you're going to be a grand champion or not. So that piece, maybe just a little bit thick. Again, some really good pieces here. Continuing to see some really great color. And unfortunately, I gotta be careful with my hands. I'm not messing up the top too much. But we can fix all that with a brush in just a second. So we're gonna cut one more and see where we are at. Still feels great coming all the way across. So let's take a look at where we are. Oh man, we are just absolutely perfect right there. That is a perfect slice of brisket, folks. Perfect. So I'm feeling good. I'm gonna keep cutting because maybe the far side was a little overdone. And now we're getting into that perfect area. Let's not stop. It's important you feel ready to slice your entire brisket to find the best pieces for your box. Don't be shy about it. All right, now we're getting a little tight. You see how it's not flopping quite as much? A little bit thick, so let's start moving our way back. A little tight. There we go. That's about perfect. So that's where we're going to start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. You got 10 pieces right here in the middle. That's 10 pieces for us to work with. Let's take a look here in the end. We're still good on this side here, so maybe we go one more in on the other side. We can't put really more than 10 pieces in the box. I feel pretty good about this far side, so we're going to drop one more piece on this side here. All right. So there we go. We got our 10 pieces ready to go. All right, so we'll go ahead and line them all up now. This is our turn inside. We're going to move the rest of this out of the way. Go ahead and get this out of here. And now we got to clean up this one side because it is all shattering just a little bit, okay? So we're going to be very, very cautiously cut it in one straight line, straight down. Get rid of that edge. That's it. Edge is gone. We are now even, ready to go. All right. So this is how we were. We know that we're going to go ahead and take our sauce or our jus. We've let the rest of it rest. And I'm going to put both the rest of the jus in the other one. You can see that separation of the grease. And we're going to go ahead and get it out there. And I'm going to take this in half. My front ones. So my first piece is my last piece. And now I'm going to go ahead, lay them down into the jus very cautiously, because I want them to reabsorb as much liquid as possible to keep them moist in the box. The rest of this is great, but we're going to put to the side. We'll use some of these middle pieces as testers here in just a second. But we're going to go ahead and clear the board. About now is that time where I'm asking my teammate, how much time do we have to turn in? We're beginning to watch the clock. We have to make sure that we hit our window. Again, we've probably fallen behind on 3 of the first 4 meats. Brisket is the 4th and final, and you always seem to get a late start on brisket because you try to work your way through and still have time at the end, but you lose a little bit every single time since your turn-ins are based on a 10-minute turn-in window in KCBS. So you can start your turn-ins 5 minutes before the turn-in time and turn in as late as 5 minutes after the turn-in time. So you always try and turn in your chicken right at the 5-minute front side, so you gain 10 minutes throughout the day. And now we're gonna need every minute here at the end to make sure we have a perfect finish. All right, so while we've got that down, we're gonna go ahead and take one of our pieces here. We're gonna try it, test it. We're going to go ahead and take just a little bit of our jus sauce. Go ahead and put the jus on there. Get that flavor inside. We're going to take just a little bit of sauce, which has gotten just a little bit cold in this cold night. So we're going to be very light with the sauce. Then I'm going to hit it with just a little more jus again, just to try it and see where we are. Oh man. That's really good. It's got a little bit of heat and spice from the eats on the outside. There's a touch of sweetness from the sauce. Very beefy from all that beef broth we use. I like it. That's really good as it is. Now, sometimes you may want to boost it at the end. You may want to add a little something to help get that last little bit of flavor that's going to push it over the top. So I'm going to add just a little bit of some cracked sea salt, and just because the sea salt will bring out that beef just a little bit, and we're going to see if it's better with the salt or not to make a decision whether we're going to use that at the end. I think that little bit of salt, it's on the edge whether it's too salty or not. I think it takes it a little too far. So We're not going to put any finishing dust on it. It's got enough flavor as it is that eats in the Texas Trinity. Those really have got some great flavors on that bark. I'm going to leave it alone, and we're going to finish it out here real quick. But first, I'm going to pull out those burnt ends. All right, burnt ends. Oh, just so everyone can see them, how beautiful do those look? They got that little bit of caramelization on that sauce on top, and we're going to let them just sit there and cool for just a second, because otherwise they're going to be too hot to touch because all that jus that was in there with them. But now we're ready to go ahead and finish out our box. We're going to use tonight for our presentation, we're going to use this blackboard over here. But first thing I'm going to do, I know that this piece here was my first piece, and just feeling it, it's a little thick, it's tightening up a little bit, which is not a great sign of what's in the middle here. So we're going to go ahead and lay out all of our slices. And you can see, like, again, a couple pieces. Now that we're handling each individual piece, we can see if we have any individual problems with any piece here. All right, so now we're coming here. And the final two slices right here. All right. So now, if you're looking right down, we've got all of the sauces here, everything ready. We're going to move this out of the way. We're going to go ahead and take a quick look at these pieces, and we're going to cut off their little pieces of fat. You see the fat here? We talked about this in our trimming video, how we were not really going to worry about too much of the fat because we're going to cut off at the end. Now's that time, because we don't want to give like a piece of fat like this to a judge. So we're going to cut it off real quick. Make sure it's off there. It's not on a judge's palate. So carefully with a very sharp knife, get in there, cut off the little bit of fat that you may have left during the trim process that cooked on. Judges just don't like fat. You might say, what are you doing? That's great flavor. I'm telling you, with certainty, the judges don't like it. So play it safe. Get rid of it. They can't dislike something they don't try. All right, so taking a look up and down. Just making sure there's no pieces of fat. And again, we got to move quickly here. The brisket's drying out now. It's out in the cold. All your food for competition barbecue has to taste good cold, because it's likely going to be cold by the time it gets to a judge. But anything you do to limit that amount of time that it's cold, you want to try and do. All right, last pieces here. Now the advantage here, I got 10 pieces. I actually have 11 pieces I pulled to choose from, and I only need 8 to go in the box. And I like putting 8 in the box because I like having a full box. In theory, though, you only need to put 6 pieces. If you only have 6 good pieces, do not put a 7th. Only put the 6th. Again, don't put something in the box that they're not going to like. Same goes for burnt ends. A lot of teams don't put burnt ends in the box anymore because judges can't decide if burnt ends are good or not. So we've gone ahead and pulled this stuff aside. You can see we got a broken piece here. So this piece is automatically going to get pulled out. We don't like it anymore. It's moving to the side. All right, so now we're going to go ahead. We're going to take our jus. We're going to hit them all. Get that moisture back on there. Get our flavor on there. Use your brush to kind of knock off any of the debris that might be on there. Go ahead, let the meat soak it all back in. This is all the good flavor you just cooked it in with none of the fat. We already strained out that fat. Look at that. We'll just let it absorb. Let it absorb it all. It's okay. We want it to absorb it, because the more moisture it absorbs, the longer it will stay moist and tender on its way to judging. All right. Last piece here. All right, great. See, it's all still shiny. It's just soaking it in. Now we're going to take just a hint of our sauce. Just a once back and forth. Just a little hint. Nothing crazy. Just that little slight sauciness. It's going to make this barbecue just pop. it's not gonna overwhelm it. I mean, we're talking just literally like a thumbnail full of sauce on the brush here, going up and down, and we're gonna hit it one more time with the jus to help make sure that it's been properly diluted and it's not just taking over. So we're gonna hit it one last time, and then we're gonna go move to our box. Again, this is just to hold all that moisture into this meat. Oh, doesn't it look great? I want to eat all of it. This is how you get that shine too. Everyone asks how you get that shine on the brisket. This is how right here. All right, so we know we got all these pieces here. We're gonna drop a piece. We know this was the back piece here. You know, look at that, it's tightened up. You can already see it, it's tightened up on the board, that's no good. Front piece, it's tightening up a little bit as well. Man, this cold weather is really gonna hurt us, but we're gonna keep going. Yep, that's good. So we're gonna lose 2, 1, there we go. There's 7 pieces we're gonna put in the box. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and take this back piece that we don't like. I'm gonna cut just a little bit off of it. And I'm going to make a wedge. All right? This little piece here is gonna start being how I build my box. So I'm gonna come on over here, and I'm gonna pretend this is the back of a 9x9 turning box, and I'm gonna put that right there on my board. Now, this was the front, this was the back. We're going to here. So we're gonna start off with the back here, and we're gonna lay our back piece of brisket right against that wedge, and see how it raises it up off the ground? That's exactly what we need. So we're gonna put that there. Now we're gonna put our second one. Each piece you handle individually. Make sure that you get them all in there. Look at that, we're getting perfect spacing here. Now you put your best pieces towards the front, because while the judge can grab anything in the box, they're most likely to grab from the front. So put your best meat forward, not in the back. Okay. Great, so we got 7 pieces in here, 7 slices. Now let's go to our burn ends real quick. Let's make a decision. Take one right out of the middle. Oh, it's a good looking piece. Let's try it. I'm telling you, that hits. When you use a Snake River Black, you are more likely to get great burn ends than if you use a gold. I'm telling you that. So now we need to find and lay out quickly 6 pieces that will fit on the bottom perfectly next to each other. Now they should all fit right next to each other because we used our jig. So we're just going to turn them a little bit to make sure that they fit perfectly next to each other. And I'm shooting, you notice where my fingers are. I'm going for the pieces in the middle of my board here. Inside, not outside pieces, but inside pieces. And the reason I'm doing that is because those are most likely to be the most consistent pieces. All right, so I got 6 pieces right there. I'm gonna hit them with jus again. Hit them with the jus. We're not hitting them with any more sauce, so we don't want any more sweetness. We got what we wanted out of them by having that little glaze on top. Now, we put those into the box. Carefully push them into the front. All right. Now we're gonna clean up our box a little bit. If we were in an actual turning box, we'd have some pieces of foil or towels on the side. Make sure we get all these small little pieces out. Nothing sticking out. Nice and even in front. All tight. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you competition brisket box. I hope you guys learned something tonight. I had a lot of fun cooking this Snake River Black brisket for you. It was really, really, really yummy. I really can't wait to sit back and eat it and judge it myself. But make sure you guys check this out and try it at home or out on the competition trail. Let us know how you do by leaving a comment in the comments below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel to see what else we've got going on. Follow us on all of our social media channels at Smokecraft BBQ, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Until next time, guys, we're gonna eat some brisket. Woo! Brisket time.